Dean and Andrea, thank you very much for your excellent presentations, and we'll open the floor up now to questions. Anyone like to go first? Right here.
So as a librarian, do you rely on materials that do kind of some reviews for you, choice reviews, other types of materials that are out there that are dedicated to going through some of that due diligence for you, or is it just more noise?
Right, so those are book ordering kinds of, the question was whether I use choice and other book reviewing kinds of publications. Not so much in my area, but I think that, in the humanities and social sciences, well, actually across the university, those kinds of things are important, but generally speaking, my feeling is, this is just my opinion, that over the last 10 years or so, we've lost perhaps the ability to go at that sort of individual title level and look at reviews and then order based on those individual titles. It's not to say that it doesn't happen. In some cases, a librarian would go to a review publication to see the review to make the final assessment. But I think that some of that has diminished, at least in the academic context.
It might be helpful to come out to the microphone and ask your question, so whoever would like to go next.
I have a really very basic question. So we were talking about, you have, I think, 49 titles that you sell, is that right? So I come from a very small society. We have 2. No sales force, no anything, and sort of inherited this situation of kind of whatever comes in over the transom. So I'm wondering if you have any advice about that, about how an organization like mine might go about retaining and growing subscribers. And then the second is just really, I'm coming at this as a complete novice, so for libraries, and I know you described hierarchical or flat, and in the case of, say, earth sciences, how does one figure out even who to talk to? And how is a library organized in that fashion? So those are my 2.
Do you want me to go first, or do you want Andrea to go first?
Either way.
Okay. So, one of the things that you could potentially do, sometimes I like to look at the library and see if they have research portals, and quite often individual subject librarians will have their own portal or their own subject area, and then you can see their photograph and their individual email, and you might want to use that as an opportunity to send that question to them. Say, I've looked at your website, I think I might have some materials that you could use. I'd like to, tell you a little bit more about them, but I wonder if you're the person that I can talk to, or if there's somebody else. That's a really direct way, and I think librarians would appreciate that kind of direct approach.
I think when it comes to, if you only have 2 journals, how to sell them, and you don't have a sales team, there's a couple things. You can look at aggregated databases. I don't know if you saw, AccuComms made an announcement yesterday about their new product. Now I can't remember the name. I don't know if anyone's here from Aggregation, where they're trying to get specifically for people who have just 1 or 2 titles, and they'll sell them at the list price. So it's not your traditional aggregator where you have to give it to them and you just get a small portion. They're actually going to start selling. They announced that yesterday at 10:15 during the session. So that, and also, or finding an agent that you want to use worldwide, and they'll just, there's a lot of them. Bob can really answer that.
I'm happy to talk to you.
Yeah. So there's a lot of different ways. And I thought about that. I thought, what if I just had 2? We wouldn't be able to have a full sales team. But I think an agent would be, or an aggregator in that case.
Kim?
Hi, Kim Steinley, Duke University Press. I had lots of questions, but can I keep it to 2? Is that okay?
Sure.
So the first question would be about reaching out to faculty. And it would be great to hear from both of you. I think from Dean, how do you feel about our reaching out to faculty? And do you have suggestions? And then Andrea, what do you all do that you found successful or not?
Ladies first.
Oh, thank you. I have Jenny in the room, and I don't mean to put her on the spot, but Jenny is our marketing manager, and she's really done a lot. And the article that we referred to, that Rick Anderson, he really made some good points about whether you're selling to an end user or you're marketing. And we've done a lot. Do you mind speaking, Jenny? Because she takes care of all that, and she does a great job of it.
So what we try to do is market our content directly to the user. Is this on? It doesn't feel like this is on.
You can probably take it out of the, or,
So we market our content directly to the end users, so we know who the people who are reading them. I mean, that's what we want them to have access to that, to try it out. We do lots of free articles, which thankfully don't really impact the journal collections because there's enough that we can sample there that doesn't, impact that negatively, thankfully. And we target our users that are in those disciplines, and then hopefully the usage gets bumped up nicely, and we can show that there's, actually some valid, need and desire for that content, so that it makes it easier for the librarians to understand that this is something they're going to have to, that will be used when it's paid for, and then hopefully helps the salespeople to cross that bridge. But we were obviously very mindful and respectful of the relationship, so we would not want to go through, conduit of, you should have this, and make sure you tell your librarian we said so. That just seems very, go ask your father because your mom said no kind of thing. So, we don't want to do that. So I hope that kind of, really, it is very, it's a hybrid approach, but we also are respectful of some of those different mechanisms in place throughout the different academic environment.
And Kim, were you the Kim that helped me figure out where this actual session was taking place?
Yeah.
So thank you for that, because I wouldn't be here without you. And your question about reaching out to faculty, I think it's terrific. I really approve of that. In the Rick Anderson article in your bibliography and your further reading and homework, there's a sort of a case study there about a librarian who was a little annoyed at somebody who did a runaround the library. But, librarians don't mind you marketing to faculty. I think one of the things that might be useful as sort of an additional bit of information is who is your librarian? And it might be useful for us all to have a conversation if you haven't already had one. Some sort of tie-in or way to bring them into the conversation. I think that might be helpful.
Can I ask my second question?
sure.
So what is the secret to site visits? I think for us, we have a challenge because we understand that libraries have to prioritize. You can't have every single publisher visit. But I think then because maybe you don't have a lot of spend with us, because we're smaller, we end up not being a priority. So I guess I wonder, what's the way to, why would you want us to come visit? How can we convince you we have something important to say? And it's not always about selling you something.
I think that, because this was one key part of my idea around relationship building with librarians, that there is a way to do it that is specific and tailored, personalized to the library. In some cases, like in my case, I'm like, bring it on. I want to talk to you. I want to hear, I'm fascinated by the work that Andrea does and the work that many of you do. So, but some librarians, I think, feel, obviously there are more publishers than time. And so, it might be worthwhile asking, well, do you have a schedule you're on? Like you talk to one publisher in 1 year and then another publisher in another year? Maybe you can get onto a schedule or something so they don't feel like they're always being asked to meet. And in some cases, if you can develop that personal relationship with a library advocate, that's a key.
Evelyn?
I'm Evelyn Elias from Taylor and Francis, and I sell books to libraries.
Yay.
I have the challenge ahead of me that I'm going to have to hire 6 people on my team this year. So I'm growing my team by 50%. What should I be looking for in those people, and how well should they be trained before they come see you at your library?
I really think that if somebody has a book sense and an academic sense, they don't have to be academics, but if they understand the scholarly cycles and communication cycles, I think that goes a long way. So, I think if you could find somebody who had like a good skill set, it's the ability to speak in that kind of context, a scholarly context, that it's not so heavily balanced or weighed over onto the sales part of it. At least, I do think that there's a little bit of a difference between the skills needed in the American context versus the Canadian, which is why I keep bringing it up. Canadians tend to be, we're not as direct, forthright perhaps about things, and so sometimes at least this is my attitude anyway, is we avoid having a conversation, and in some institutions, I think that frontline librarians are, discouraged from having those conversations. So the sales skills are really important, but so are some of those other things that we've talked about. I think if you could find somebody that would have, a scholarly sense in some way, or build it, that might be appreciated.
My only comment, and Evelyn, you probably know this, but I think you made a really good comment. There's different cultures, and you have to hire the person that fits into a specific culture for a territory. You need someone very different, as you know, in Latin America, where it's warm and fuzzy, and you have to dance and hug, and and then when you go to China, where it's very formal. So I think that, to me, is most important, is looking at the territories and then the personalities that fit those territories.
Reading, I don't know. I really think that, one of the things that I feel I'm going to try to do with the rest of my career is promote the idea of reading, even if you like to read on computer screens, like really try to absorb, not just skipping across content, like absorb things and face to face, put that mobile away, and, so those kinds of, I know that, like I see this in the doctors at the hospital. They're so tied to their mobile, they've got pressures. But if we can move away from that and be more personal and be more literary, I think it would be a good move.
Hi, I'm Kevin Horwitz. I'm with the New England Journal of Medicine.
Yay!
Yay! So I want to talk about the renewals process, and specifically for the whole panel, really, in talking about the subscription agent rather than the sales partner. So like we're talking about the EBSCOs and the Hrasowitzes of the world, where when we're coming to the renewal process, we're not sure exactly, are they talking to our customer, are we talking to our customer? Who should actually be the person responsible for that? And then also on the library side, who do you want to hear from? Do you want to hear from the subscription agent who's making it more convenient for you to renew to all these journals? Or do you want to start getting quotes from the actual journal itself saying, here's your price, you can renew, here's your price, you can renew through your agent if you want, but you also might be getting a quote from the agent as well.
That's a good question that I would probably want to pose to the person who is at the top of the collections hierarchy at UBC Library. It seems to me that the important part of that is that I think we get the New England Journal of Medicine through a consortial arrangement with COPL. I could be wrong, but I think that's the case. One of the things that's difficult for us is at UBC, we have the largest medical school in North America. We graduate more than 300 students a year. And so this is across 15 different sites provincially, and of course, whenever you try to network a big tool, it gets more and more expensive. So it seems to me that, if you can give a librarian the best possible deal, they will love you, right? And I think whatever way that happens, whether it's, from an agent or whether it's through a consortial arrangement or directly, doesn't really matter.
Next, please.
Better start singing. It's not a question, it's a comment further to the gentleman from the New England Journal of Medicine. Unfortunately, how long is a piece of string? What you do in North America and how you sell, whether it's through an agent or direct, is completely different from how you might sell in Japan or how you might sell in China. Is there anyone from EBSCO here? Okay, or from a subscription agent? Okay, cool. You know, a publisher doesn't necessarily expect, and I've been doing this for a long time, a publisher doesn't expect the subscription agent to know your content as well as you do. They are there to represent all the publishers in their portfolio. You can give them the tools, you can give them the information, but they're never going to do, with all due respect to them, some bright guys, unless they've got armies of salespeople like Marizen and Kina here in Japan and CNP in China, they're never going to get the breadth of coverage that you can do yourself. So if you're really serious about building a business, you as a publisher have to invest and find a way of making those direct contacts yourself and use the subscription agents to follow up and to try and close where they can. But it's different in every single market in the world. And I realise this is a huge market, but it is only one market.
I think we have time for one or two more questions. Anybody else? No?
I have,
Andrea?
actually, as someone, when we're talking about renewals, I think what we're finding is, especially if you have a low-priced product and your price increase might be 5%, and I think it all gets thrown into a spreadsheet, and the library looks and says, "Ooh, they're 5%." Well, 5% of $260 is a lot less than 1.5% of $10,000, and it becomes this big going back and forth, and a lot of time on both sides, and how can we get libraries to look at the dollar amount and the value and not just the percentage each year? I think that's a big, I don't know if anybody else has that problem, but it's a lot of work on both our sides.
That's a very good question. I think it would be useful at renewal time for you to have all of your metrics lined up. Sometimes what librarians do, I mean, we used to do it in the print era where if somebody used a medical journal in the library, we would have a little check mark for every time they used it. It's hard to do electronically, and so if you can get good metrics and you can figure out cost per use and then cost per use in the new price, and then what that means in terms of the 5% more for a new fiscal year. So all of those things, and if you break it down like that, and it's 35 cents per use, I mean, you can say that that's really worth the value. And then, of course, if your publication is being cited by, key scholars in the field, bring it to the attention of the librarian, or, scholars within the institution even. I think that's something worth considering.
I know we're out of time. Could I just add something real quick?
Sure.
I'm Rick Anderson from the University of Utah.
Oh,
I'm actually
hey.
the author of that article you assigned, so thank you very much. I just wanted to add that the question of cost and value is always a really troublesome one for us. And cost per use sounds like it's a cost measure, but it's not. It's a value measure, right? And this is a conversation I have over and over. I've got sales reps who get so tired of hearing me say this, but cost will always trump value. And you can show us data indicating that this product has a 35-cent cost per download, and that is truly an argument for tremendous value. At the end, as one of my colleagues used to say, we don't pay our invoices in percentages, we pay our invoices in dollars. Yeah. And the number of very high value, great deal products that are out there completely outstrips the number of dollars that we have available to buy them. And so what I find myself often begging sales reps to understand is when I say I can't buy your product, or even worse, that I can't renew your product, it's not usually because I don't think your product is a tremendous value. It's usually because I've got $3 worth of, I've got $1 to spend and $3 worth of tremendous value options, and I'm just going to have to pick one. And so I guess that's my message to the sales reps is please don't assume that if we don't buy or don't renew, that it's because we don't think your product isn't of high value. It's just that ultimately we pay in dollars, not percentages, and we don't have enough dollars.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rick. I think we're out of time, so that wraps it up. Thank you very much for attending our session. I think we got a lot of value in a short amount of time. And thank you, Andrea and Dean especially.